Okay, so the reason why we're down here today is actually to get a drone shot, and it's a shot that I've been wanting to get for quite a long time now. The skyline here on the Gold Coast is pretty much right along the coast, it's right along the beach. So when the sun sets over this way, it casts a really nice shadow that runs all the way along the beach and out into the water. Today's a perfect day to get this shot. Usually it's quite windy. Today it's kind of calm and it's a nice sunny day. As you can see, the sun is out. So we're gonna get those nice shadows. And I'm thinking that I have to take off pretty soon because the sun is dipping a little bit. So I'm gonna grab the drone out now and set it up.
It's not much to shoot out here when there's too many people.
Yeah.
Or too much people, too many people. Whatever the English is, it's not my first language.
Dude, do you have any
tips?
Yeah, I've got a tip for you.
I got a tip for you. Leave us alone. No, I've got a tip for you. Subscribe to my page.
So if you guys post your photos on Instagram, you might already know that the best way to essentially post them is to have like a 4x5 portrait orientation, not landscape. And that is because you're gonna have the most screen real estate when it pops up in the feed, and it's gonna look really nice. But most of the DJI drones, you can't actually change the orientation of the photo, and so you have to shoot it in a landscape. So I'm gonna show you guys today how I get portrait orientation photos with the drone. Little photo shoot going on here. So part of that process is actually shooting the photo in the camera, and then the other half of the process happens in Lightroom. So obviously we could take this photo in landscape like this, just get the shot, and then we would essentially need to crop out the center of the photo in order to make it 4x5 portrait. But instead of doing that, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to pan the camera up a little bit and just get that centered again so the Q1, the tallest building, is right in the center. I'm going to take a photo there, and straight after it I'm going to actually pan down so you can see a little bit more underneath on the beach, and then take another photo. And essentially every single photo that I take, I'm going to take those two variations. I'm just going to pan up, get more of the sky, pan down, get more of the ground in the shot. Let it land. That's it. Nice. All right, so not exactly the lighting conditions that we hoped for. However, I think I got a decent photo. The sun was coming through, but just not full sun. It was very diffused by that cloud. We'll come back another day. We'll eventually get that shot, I'm sure, but it just wasn't meant to be today. All right, time to head back, jump into Lightroom and stitch these photos together so I can show you guys the final result. Here we are back at the computer, and I've just loaded in a brand new catalog, and I've imported all the photos that I took on the drone from the day, and I'm about to start stitching them together. Luckily, this is a really quick process, super easy to do. I'm using Lightroom. If you guys use Capture One, unfortunately, there is no stitch feature available yet. However, I heard they are bringing it out soon, so stay tuned for that. You can do this in either Lightroom or Photoshop. So we've got a couple of shots here. These are just normal framing, and then you'll see that I've got my shots that I've panned up a little bit for and then panned down. One thing that I didn't mention when I was out shooting the photos is that you need to leave a little bit of an overlap between the two shots. So when you pan up and then pan down, make sure you just leave a little bit of extra in the middle. Don't pan up too far and then too low so that there's like a gap in between both photos, if that makes sense. And what you're going to want to do is select both of these photos just by holding Command or Control, right click on them and select Photo Merge Panorama. Now it's going to load this extra little window in, and as you can see, we've got our stitched photo, and it's kind of a weird shape. So you can choose from these different options. There's spherical, cylindrical, perspective. I think perspective for this kind of shot works the best. So we're going to go ahead and leave all the settings there. You don't want to do the auto crop or the auto settings or anything like that. We're going to crop it manually later, and we're just going to hit merge. So that'll take a little bit of time to create the panorama. Then you've got a brand new image here that you can start working with. And the first thing that we're going to do is actually create a crop. Because the limit of Instagram is 4:5, we're going to go and hit the X key, and that's going to create a portrait orientation crop. Then we're going to go to the aspect here in the right hand corner, and we're going to choose 4:5. Now that is the maximum aspect ratio of an Instagram post. And then we're just going to expand the selection out, and we're just going to make sure that we don't go over this white edge, so that we have, you know, a white edge on the bottom or the top of the photo. And I'm going to make it so that the Q1, which is the tallest building on the Gold Coast, is right in the center. And I'm just going to make sure that I've got a nice straight photo there. So Q1 is nice and straight right in the center of the image, and just hit enter. And that's where we're going to begin working. We're going to begin editing this photo. A lot of the time when you're using this technique, you are going to have issues with sometimes the buildings being a little bit out of whack, not being completely straight. The best way to resolve that is to use the upright tool under the transform section in Lightroom. And basically what you'll do there is just select this little crosshair kind of logo icon thing, and then you're going to want to draw straight lines on the buildings, so one straight down. And the best way to do it is just to do buildings on either side, so on the left and then right hand side, and then that's going to help to really straighten out the perspective of the photo. Now that did help a little bit for this photo, but it didn't really need it. It wasn't in a dire need of straightening. I'm just going to leave it how it is though. So you're pretty much finished at this point with making the panorama. The only thing left to do is edit the photo, so I'll show you guys how I edited it. As always, I start with one of my presets. My go-to is the Authentic Film 00, so let's just slap that on. First thing we're going to do is adjust the exposure, because that's way too dark, so I'm going to boost that up a little bit. And it is very, very cold, so I will add some warmth into the photo, and already you can see that's starting to come to life. We don't want to go too far. What I'm going to do next is probably just bring down the black value. So we're going to add a little bit more contrast into the shot, and I'm just going to play around with the whites with that sky. What I might do is create a graduated filter as well. So I'm going to drag that down over the top half of the image, and then just pull back the exposure slightly so we get that kind of moody sky in there. And that's looking pretty cool. I'm actually going to do the opposite with the bottom of the image, because it is a little bit too dark. I might want to brighten it up just a touch. So bring in another graduated filter, bump the exposure a tiny little bit. And I want to accentuate the light that's coming in from the west in this photo, so the left hand side of the image, by using another graduated filter, and then bumping exposure up again and adding a little bit of warmth, and that's going to really help for that kind of sunlight kind of glow popping in on the photo. I'm just going to play around with like where the fall off is. I'm just going to make it quite subtle actually. We don't want too much warmth, otherwise the sky is going to go really weird. And that looks pretty good to me. I'm thinking I might actually crop in a little bit more, because I think the city's a little bit too small in the photo. So that's usually where I leave it. If you want to go a little bit more dramatic, you can go and grab the dehaze and just bump that up a little bit, and that's going to add a little bit more of that contrast and that crunchiness in. You can balance it out by boosting the exposure as well, and that's a really punchy image, something that I could definitely see posting on my Instagram account. Obviously you could go in and like clean up all the people on the beach there. That might take half an hour or so. Don't really have the time for that right now in this demonstration. But yeah, the whole point of this was to show you guys how to create a panorama. As I mentioned in the video, I wasn't super stoked on the conditions on that day. Coincidentally, I went back to this spot on a different day about a week later, and I snapped this photo, which I'm very, very happy with, because you can see those beautiful shadows from the buildings. This was exactly what I envisioned in the original shot. However, it just didn't work out. So, you know, if you are trying to get a shot, don't be disheartened. Go give it another crack on a different day, and you'll eventually get there. As long as you have that idea for that photo, you'll eventually make it. You know, it's just trial and error. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you guys in the next one.